Hi everybody. So Christmas has just passed and I noticed that I'd gained some weight over the Christmas period. I'm sure we can all understand that one. So I decided to use this as an opportunity to take on the Ketogenic challenge. This is a 21-day keto plan. Ketosis, or the ketogenic diet, is around 75% fats, around 20% proteins, and around 10% carbohydrates. The first thing I wanted to do was make sure that I understood what I was getting into. I did some research online and did a lot of checking. Whenever you begin something like this, guys, you want to make sure you understand it fully. We all want to get results, and doing something incorrectly is not going to get those results to happen any faster. Now, as I mentioned, it's a high-fat diet. Now, I say that with quote marks, guys, because I like to think of nutrition rather than dieting, but let's use the word diet for now. So keto is higher in the fats, so things like cheese, heavy cream, oils, and what a lot of people will do is say, well, that sounds unhealthy. Fats are not the enemy. If you have a high sugar or high processed diet, that is when you're going to be your most unhealthy. So as I said, it was higher fats, good protein, and very low carbs. Now, I know that sugars affect me quite a bit, so cutting out sugars was a very good thing. Difficult to start with, but not impossible. The next thing I wanted to know was that there was lots of varied foods that I could use on ketosis. And as you can see from the scrolling list here, there are plenty of foods that you can try. So I next got hold of a keto calculator. You can find this on iTunes or from your app store. I input my personal details and it came out with a calculation for me. And as you can see, as said, it is higher fat, medium to low protein, and very low carbohydrates. Now, I want to be clear here, those are net carbs. So that's sugar and carbohydrates added together to make my net carbs. And that's how I came out with this plan. The next thing I made sure I had was a full subscription to MyFitnessPal because I wanted to do strict keto and actually get the benefits from it rather than just guessing at it. So every day I would input my foods, check my nutrition, make sure I was getting a little bit of everything, and also, of course, hitting those percentages. And guys, I want to tell you, I did it for about 5 days before I weighed myself and checked my percentages, and I was very pleased with the results, guys. In the first week, I managed to lose 4 to 5 pounds. Now, I don't think it should be a racetrack to losing weight. This can often plateau very quickly. So I made sure to keep up my exercise, my activity levels, and I'll say this. In the first 3 or 4 days, I did have what's called keto flu, which is where my body was reacting to the lack of sugar and carbohydrates to start with. I made sure that I was getting enough of everything, but yet this was still something that I noticed quite strongly. After 3 or 4 days, it was amazing. My body switched from carbohydrates and sugars over to fat as its energy source. Because I was intaking enough fats though, I was satiated. My meals were filling, they were enjoyable, and there was lots of variety to them. And the longer I did it for, the more variety I could come up with. I cannot impress enough the importance though of pre-preparing food. I started each day with intermittent fasting, so I would fast for between 12 to 16 hours every day, starting around 9 o'clock the day before. And then I would make sure to have my food ready for when I was going to eat, because the weakest point would always be when I was just about to end my fast and I would want to reach for something quick and simple. And if you pre-prepared your foods, and as you can see, guys, was lots of variety in those foods, then you can have pretty much anything you want within reason. One thing that really helped me as well was that I did do a little bit what's called dirty keto, which is effectively I would allow myself a small treat at the end of each day. A top tip was that I would write my food plan backwards for the day. So I would end the day on the thing I enjoyed the most. Say, for example, here was sausages, American mustard, cheese, avocado, lettuce, and these were what we called naked hot dogs. Over time, I noticed that my weight was dropping, and one thing I do like to do is make sure that I'm doing the right ketogenic level for my current weight and current fat percent. So every week I would check my stats, and then I would input them into the keto calculator, and if my calories needed to be less, then there would be slightly less each week. Definitely in the first few weeks was the biggest results, the biggest change. It slowed down over time, but I did not find it was much of a challenge as long as I was pre-prepared. Let's have a look at a few other foods that I was eating. Yes, that's correct. That is dark chocolate. I was able to have dark chocolate every day, which I found really helped. Now, when I say dark chocolate, I do mean around 90% dark chocolate. I had steak, prawns, many different proteins. It wasn't nearly as much protein as I'm used to intaking. And I did find, which you'll see later, that it did affect more than just my fat loss. But we'll come to that a bit later. I want to go back to what I was saying about the dirty and the clean keto. If you're doing absolutely clean keto, it is quite a struggle. One thing I used a lot of was avocado. And when I say avocado, in all forms. So I had avocado oil, avocado mayonnaise. Definitely the avocado oil was a huge help, especially if I had things like salads. I had a lot of rocket, things like that. And when you do a salad, you can add plenty of oil to them, and that oil is really going to help out to get enough fats in your system. Colored vegetables and fruit was something I kept quite to a minimum. Very important that, guys, because there can be a lot of hidden sugar. Also things like sausages, which are slightly more processed, I was careful of, as well as nuts, because they would add up to a lot of my calories. At the end of each day, I would have a small amount of something like spray cream or heavy cream, my dark chocolate, and even a tiny bit of Halo ice cream with it to give it some flavor. Protein shakes were generally out as they took my protein too high. So what were my results like? Well, here you go, guys. Here is my body water starting out with 47.5 and went up to 49%. I definitely found by fasting at the beginning, I was having to intake more water during my fast to keep properly hydrated. So that was important, guys. I was drinking lots and lots of water. I was also drinking water with extra electrolytes in it, like smart water. Here is my body fat. As you can see, it started out at above 33.5, and by the end of 21 days, it was 31.3. So over a 2% fat drop in that 21 days. So that's only 3 weeks for a 2% drop. The average person, if they're working hard, can drop about 1% a month. Here's the BMI, and as you can see again, guys, I was up over 35, and by the end of the 21 days, it was down to 32.5. I've always been a bigger guy, always been a heavier guy, naturally higher fat percent, but this was a significant change in 21 days. My BMR, or intake of calories, was, you can see from this that it changed heavily. 2,350 calories, 2,228 calories by the end of the 21 days, which is why I recommend weekly checking on your keto calculator to make sure you're not overdosing on the calories, because you're not your original weight. My muscle mass was something that I did notice, and that's the one thing I wasn't happy about. As you can see, it's above 152 and went down to 146.6, I believe that is. I'm looking on the screen here. And that was quite a drop for me. So I will come back to that in a minute. Here we go, guys. 242.2 was my original weight, 224.6. So you can see that's a significant change. A big difference. I think it was about, by the end of it, I was around a stone in weight loss. Here you go, guys, and here is my numbers calculated. 17.2 when I started, and 16 stone by the end of 21 days. So, guys, if you want to try the ketogenic plan, do your research, check into the correct macros, use MyFitnessPal. Write your plans backwards of the day, so write backwards of what you want to eat. That way you start the day on what you need and you end it on what you want. Guys, we're going to be doing more stuff like this, so if you like this video, please like, subscribe and comment. Simply scroll to the bottom of the screen and add your comment below all the recommended videos. It was very, very effective, guys, but do your research. Make sure you understand what you're having and make sure you do it nutritionally. I was very pleased with the results, and I definitely recommend this to anyone who wants to combine it with a good training regime. So I decided to add this bonus section of pros and cons because I wanted to give a fair argument on both sides and make sure that anyone who's thinking about trying this does understand that there are two sides to every argument. So these are my pros and cons that I learned from doing 21 days on the keto diet. So pros: effective for weight loss, good tasting and healthy food most of the time. I'd recommend it for anyone who has plateaued in their weight loss. If planned properly and using MyFitnessPal, ketosis can be achieved within 3 days or less. If you're doing loose keto or not measuring your foods, then you're going to find it more difficult. Out of 14 pounds I lost, I've managed to keep off 10 pounds even though I'm not on keto anymore. And as long as using healthy foods, this can be a way of living for some people, I believe. And I want to be very clear, this is not medical advice. This entire video is not medical advice. Do seek medical advice if you want to try the ketogenic plan. Cons, still on the medical. If you are a diabetic or high blood pressure or high cholesterol risk, then do seek medical advice before beginning ketosis or the ketogenic diet. You will need to do some research. It's not just about having more protein and less veg. It is not a high protein diet. Fast results often lead to weight returning if you're not careful, especially if you're only looking at this as a short-term thing. I would say 21 days was the least amount of time you want to go on the ketogenic plan. The foods were a little bit repetitive. There is a risk of higher saturated fat intake if you're lacking knowledge of good foods. Within a day or two of stopping, some of the weight may return. Some of the weight I lost would have been water weight, and nowhere was I warned that going on keto, if you decide to have high carbs in the first meal you have back, you may become ill from the carbohydrates. So take it easy on that first meal back.